when you first started writing, you said something about there's a burning desire to write or say something. Now, a lot of young writers that we speak to are always like, I don't know what to write about. Is there something that you do in order for you to go inside, or does that just come up at certain points in life that I need to say this as a writer, I need to say that as a writer? Is there something you can do to stimulate that, or is it just kind of an organic process?
So you're saying when a young writer says they don't know what to write about, or it's like, look, I mean, there's nothing more difficult than staring at a blank page. Every writer will tell you that, right? But just in terms of what you're referring to, as far as they're not sure of how to proceed, or they're just like looking for something to write about at the beginning.
Looking for something to write about, because I'm a firm believer of you should write about things that affect you and touch you the most. Now, a lot of young people at an early age, they don't quite know, and I even went through the same process as well. I was like, I don't know if I should write about this, I don't know if I should write about that. Is there something that you can do in order to not validate what you're thinking, but to bring forth what's really going on inside, if that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, I think the oldest saying in the book is write what you know. And write what you know doesn't mean, hey, I've never been to war, so I can't write about war. Or, I've never, I don't know, been in the 19th and 18th century. I can't write about the 18th century. It's just to say, write what you know when it comes to an understanding, a feeling, a connection, a spirit, right? I can feel a spiritual connection to Malcolm X. It doesn't mean I'm Black. It doesn't mean I'm, I've ever been a civil rights leader or activist, but I can spiritually connect to that character, or, to something that he was standing for, right? That's to say, write what you know in terms of your soul. And our souls, thankfully, are tremendously ancient. We're not here, from just, a few years of life on Earth. I think the more you delve into the artistic exploration, which is really, in its deepest sense, it's the hero's quest. It's, and it's like discovering yourself and realizing that your journey is not just claiming something new, but actually reclaiming something ancient that's inside of you. Remembering these moods, these feelings. Why am I drawn to things? It's like you have to ask yourself, since you're a child, you're drawn to certain worlds. You're drawn to certain stories, right? You're drawn to certain characters, certain archetypes, right? That's all reflection, I believe, of what your soul knows. And so these are the things that you want to start by writing about, like what really is essential to what your soul is, what you're interested by. And then in terms of saying like, what to write about, it's interesting. I've never had writer's block, but I've also never forced myself to write. And it's something that I always, I advise people to journal, because one thing is, if you don't know what to write about, you can always journal, right? If you're just like, I need the discipline. Thankfully, my Capricorn, and I'm also like, my my moon is in Aries, so I have like the warrior thing. So for me, it's easy to be disciplined. Some people are just lazy, like they can't discipline it that way, or it's very sort of passive. It's very difficult for them to discipline. So for me, it's not hard to discipline. So for me, it's like, at the same time, I don't push myself if I don't know what I want to write about. Let's say I don't have inspiration right now. I don't force it. I literally just go with my interests. What am I interested in reading? I might, my background was in history at college. And I always tell artists and anyone working in the arts, study history, study the art, study not just art, like, watching Tarantino movies, which are all reflections of other pop culture images. Like, don't just study pop culture, understand history, because that's where the stories are. You can call it our story, not his story. It's our story, but it's like, that's where the stories are. When you can start to delve into the past and understand that all of life around us is still a reflection of things that have come before. So when you start to expand yourself into that world, you can be inspired and draw upon plays from the past, ancient stories, ancient traditions, and not even just ancient, ancient can be 20 years ago. It can be, 30 years ago, obviously. But the point is just being able to look to areas of interest that then inspire. So, in my case, it was more from history, but that also comes to the very like modern social culture, pop culture, things like this. Always studying, always reading, always absorbing, and then taking it in and sort of, you're an alchemist. That means you transmute, you take the raw materials of the earth, you take the raw materials of things around you, and you write notes. You can jot down dialogue, an idea, a visual, a character, whatever. You just start to you keep a notebook always on you, or a pen always on you. You write notes. Okay, something is starting to come to life. Just it may be one shot, one image, and it can be like that's just an image, and it may end up becoming a whole story around that one image that you saw in your mind. But don't force it. That's the thing too. Like if it just sit with it, that's the beauty of writing. You literally scrap, you take your diary and you journal. I dream journal, things from dreams. And sometimes I'll look back and be like, wow, that could be a movie just in itself. If I have the energy, obviously, but that's another thing. It's like, you don't want to just start writing without the energy to do it, because writing a script is not going to take you less than a month. I don't know if the Rocky story is true, that Stallone wrote it in 3 days, but it must have taken years of thought. If it was going to take 3 days, because it's energy. You're literally reverse engineering a nuclear explosion when you create a film or create a script, because you're taking all this energy and having to put it into this capsule that's literally just this page, whatever it is, 100 pages, that's in your hand at the end of the day. But how much thought, energy, emotion had to live and exist to be drawn upon and then put into that script that's sitting there. And how much energy you draw upon is how dense that script's going to become. Mm-hmm. So a lot of scripts floating around are very light. You're sitting here, fluff, fluff, fluff. You're just feeling, and you just, you're writing about your breakfast. You're writing about, hey, I can't stand when I'm reading a script. Hi, how's it going? Fine. How are you? It's like, no, that's ordinary, boring, everyday dialogue. Get that out of there. You want to get to the meat. Every line has intention. Every line has a purpose. It has to keep my interest on the screen, or I'm changing the channel. Like, that's the intensity and the energy that you're bringing to a story. So you can't be like sitting there going, what should I write about? Oh, I'm flipping through the newspaper. Oh, this is a good story. Let me start writing a script about it. It doesn't work that way. You have to literally take the energy and the feeling of something, study it, write notes, outline, sketch, create something that has a structure, like has an intention, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Don't write the whole script, just outline it and bring enough energy and emotion to it such that you can sit there and literally, you could write it in 3 days, I guess, if you're just powering through. But the idea is that you can sit there for that month or 2 months or whatever it takes and actually bring the energy to complete that. Because otherwise it'll just be meandering. Otherwise it'll just go off and it'll be like that, never ending novel or whatnot that just kind of people like start writing and then they just give up on halfway through, because it's just too much intensity to clarify the idea from the beginning